as required under Assembly Bill 481. We will have several panelists addressing different aspects of this topic. Carolyn Shahinian, the department's legal advisor from the Office of the County Counsel, will be providing an overview of the legal aspects of the state law that mandates military equipment reporting. Lieutenant Daniel Inez from the Weapons Training Unit will give an overview of the 2024 Military Equipment Report, the department's policy on military equipment, and the information on how equipment is used and tracked. And Captain Robbie Royster and Lieutenant Joseph Saladpour, Special Enforcement Bureau, will give an overview of the department's Unmanned Aircraft System, or UAS program. Following the presentation, we will take live questions. If you have access to a microphone and want to ask questions verbally, please click the hand icon on the right side of your screen. When it's your turn, we'll unmute you so you can address your questions directly to the panelists. We ask that all participants limit questions and comments to 2 minutes so we can cover as much as possible. We also ask that questions and comments remain respectful and constructive. Any comment that is disruptive or disrespectful will be muted. And we will move on to the next question immediately. With that, let's begin. Our first presenter is Ms. Carolyn Shahinian, Legal Advisor with the Office of the County Counsel. Ms. Carolyn Shahinian will provide an overview of Assembly Bill 481, including what qualifies as military equipment under California Government Code Section 770, and the legal requirements for reporting the public engagement. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you, Captain Haynes. As the captain mentioned, I'll be providing the legal framework for AB 481. So what is AB 481? Assembly Bill 481 is a California law that was introduced to increase transparency and accountability for the funding, acquisition, and use of military equipment by state and local law enforcement agencies. On September 30th, 2021, Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 481 into law, which went into effect on January 1st, 2022. AB 481, now reflected in the government code, includes a broad definition of what constitutes military equipment. So it's a legal term defined by state law, specifically Government Code Section 7070C, and it includes over 14 categories of various items. What does AB 481 require? Well, it requires that a law enforcement agency create a military equipment use policy, which is defined as a publicly released written document governing the use of military equipment by a local law enforcement agency that addresses a number of things. And a few examples of what is to be provided include a description of each type of military equipment, the quantities sought, its capabilities and expected lifespan, the purpose and authorized use for each type of military equipment, the training required before any peace officer is allowed to use each specific type of equipment, and procedures by which members of the public may submit concerns or questions about the use of each specific type of equipment. AB 481 also requires a law enforcement agency to obtain approval by its governing body before purchasing, raising funds for, or acquiring military equipment. Here in Los Angeles County, the governing body is the Board of Supervisors, and approval is obtained by adoption of the policy via ordinance. And that ordinance has to be reviewed and renewed annually. And up on the slide, you can see the section of the ordinance. AB 481 also requires law enforcement agencies to submit annual military equipment reports that are publicly available on their internet websites, and that the law enforcement agency hold a community engagement meeting at which the general public may discuss and ask questions regarding the annual military equipment report, as well as the law enforcement agency's funding, acquisition, or use of military equipment, which is why we're all here today. Next slide, please. I mentioned that the law, Government Code Section 7070C, defines what constitutes military equipment. And here is the list. I won't go through it in exhaustive detail, but it covers items such as certain types of armored vehicles, weaponized vehicles, explosive breaching tools, certain specialized firearms and ammunition, flashbangs, and other items that some of our other panelists will discuss today. And with that, I will pass it back to Captain Haynes.
Thank you, Ms. Shahanian. Next, we'll hear from Lieutenant Daniel Inez with LASD's Training Bureau, Weapons Training Unit.
Thank you, Captain.
Dan?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Daniel Inez. I'll be providing you with an overview of the annual report and certain aspects of the military equipment policy. Although military equipment items are defined in the California Government Code under Section 7070, the term military equipment can be misleading. Military equipment includes many items that are not used by LASD. All of the items we use are standard law enforcement equipment utilized by regular law enforcement agencies across the country. This can include items such as pepper spray, less lethal weapons, and robotic devices. We acquire these items from standard law enforcement equipment retailers and not the military or through military contracts. Next slide, please. Our department policy regarding military equipment, annual reports, and other information is available on the LASD website for review at any time. This policy was put into place in conjunction with the LA County Board of Supervisors and LA County ordinances. This policy guides the process for LASD to determine what items we utilize would be considered military equipment, how it's acquired, and what its purpose and use is. The department has internal review processes for acquisition and use. We also have public oversight that includes the Board of Supervisors and public input. Today's meeting is an example of the public transparency along with our military equipment website located on the LASD transparency page. Our military equipment policy ensures that we are using the safest equipment available that minimizes risk to not only the public, but our department members as well. Our published annual report covers various aspects of our military equipment program. This report includes topics such as inventory, training, use, and costs. Next slide, please. On the screen, you will see an excerpt from the annual report. It's an inventory page. All approved military equipment items are included in the annual report. The columns list such items such as the description, manufacturers and models, quantity and possession by the department, what the basic capabilities are, its purpose and use, and the approximate cost for each item, the amount of potential requisition to maintain sufficient supplies in the event of emergencies or supply chain shortages. Next slide, please. Items are developed across the department or are deployed across the department's jurisdiction and functions. This can include patrol stations, custody facilities, or specialized units. Thank you for your time. I'll return it back to Captain Haynes.
Thank you, Lieutenant Inez. Our final presentation will be by Captain Robbie Royster and Lieutenant Joseph Salipor with the LASD Special Enforcement Bureau. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Captain Robbie Royster from the Special Enforcement Bureau. I'm going to talk a little bit. If you tuned in from last year, you know that we are in the transitioning phase from our old UAS program moving into a new modern DFR program. I'm going to talk a little bit quickly about what our existing program is and the 8 stations that we have running pilot programs. And then we'll transition over to Lieutenant Salipor, who will talk about where the department is moving forward and some of the pilot programs that they actually have currently for DFR. So currently on our next slide, please. So currently in our policy, we have 2 policies that still last for our old UAS program. The first policy talks about the definition of a UAS. The second policy talks about how our actual deployment procedures occur and what the 6 categories that we can actually deploy a UAS for. Next slide, please. How our current process is for the 8 pilot stations is what happens is if a call for service comes out that falls within those 6 categories and they're very restrictive, the individual that wants to launch a UAS or the station has to notify the on-duty Special Enforcement Bureau duty lieutenant. That lieutenant has to approve the deployment. That lieutenant then has to notify our Air Bureau. And that lieutenant, once following that deployment, then that lieutenant fills out a automatic tracking form online, which does notifications to the Office of Constitutional Policing, as well as produce a graph on LASD.org for our transparency page. Now, at the beginning of 2025, the department looked at this process. They identified that how we were using drones was actually very archaic. It limited what we could actually use them for in order to better serve the community. And a lot of times this process, we could not put a drone up for about 20 minutes. So if you have an emergent call for service inside of your home, we could have somebody overhead immediately to try and identify that suspect. That was not possible with the restrictions on our current UAS program. So in the beginning of 2025, the sheriff launched a focus group to get together. We worked together with the civilian oversight group, and we developed a new set of policies and where the department wants to move forward. Currently, if you look on LASD.org on our transparency page, next slide, please. You will see what we do produce for the 8 pilot programs. You'll see that the description of what they were deployed on is usually within one of those categories that we can launch on. And then what I will do is I'll turn now over the presentation to Lieutenant Salapore, who will talk about where the department is moving forward and the new pilot programs that we have also concurrently operating.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Joseph Salapore. Thank you, Captain Royster, for that. Next slide, please. One of the biggest changes for this, one of the biggest changes to the department was the creation of the Unmanned Aerial System Operations Unit. What basically this does is this creates a unit that now oversees all UAS operations department-wide. It ensures that all UAS operations are compliant with laws and policies. It reports usage to all oversight bodies and the LASD public website. That's our transparency page. I'll get into that a little later. It also establishes training standards for the department. Every UAS drone pilot is Part 107 certified and also has to go through a training standard set forth by our unit. The UAS operations unit also acts as a liaison with the FAA and the NTSB, which for those of you who are unaware, the FAA is the Federal Aviation Administration. They basically set standards and in order to prevent accidents and collisions, they have a regulatory system that they set. And then the NTSB, which is the National Transportation Safety Board, which it will investigate any accidents, anything aviation-wise. So yeah. We also develop and maintain department equipment standards. We tell the department, or we work with the department to say what equipment we can have out there, make sure that all the equipment is maintained. We provide periodic reports on the UAS program to the department executives, and we conduct a yearly command inspection of all units that are authorized to conduct UAS operations. Next slide. And so with an update, we actually implemented a new policy. And like I said in the previous slide, one of the new points of the policy was to create that UAS operations unit. The new UAS policy also authorizes the deployment of a UAS as a first responder, which will happen in situations like crime in progress, a traffic accident, or other urgent issues. Basically, this is our DFR program. It stands for Drone as First Responder. Basically, this is when a crime comes, or a crime is reported, or a call for service is reported. A drone will be deployed from a fixed location and will go toward the location of the call for service. And that will be the drone as first responder. The new policy also allows for field units to deploy UAS from their patrol vehicles in order to support tactical, investigative, or emergency response operations. It expands its usage to patrol stations and specialized units to be more responsive to crimes in progress and urgent public safety needs. The policy will also allows for the UAS flight crew shall take reasonable precautions to avoid inadvertently recording or transmitting images of areas where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. The policy still requires that that there is supervision over each drone flight, and that every drone flight is recorded and has to be reported to our unit within 48 hours of the deployment. Next slide. The policy also dictates when UAS cannot be used. As you see on this slide, it can't be used to unlawfully harass, intimidate, or discriminate anyone or any individual or group. It can't be used to randomly survey any member of the public. It cannot be used to violate anyone's First Amendment rights as far as recording or photographing any assemblies, in order to identify participants who are not engaged in lawful conduct. It can't be used in conditions that create undue hazard or would prevent the safe operations of aircrafts or in any manner exceeding the manufacturer's recommendation. The UAS cannot be used for any personal business. It cannot be equipped with less lethal munitions or any facial recognition software. And it can't be used in any manner with any software added equipment that is used contrary to additional restrictions imposed by the department-wide UAS program commander, which holds the rank of lieutenant or higher, which in this for our unit would be me, Lieutenant Salazar. Next slide. So I just want to talk about data retention and evidence. So absent any exigent or unexpected circumstances, all UAS deployments, associated digital data will be captured and retained in accordance with the department's policy and department-specified digital evidence management system. Now, DEMS is CJIS compliant. That is federal regulated. It's actually CJIS compliance is federal standards that basically sets regulations on what data security in order to help that department set for data security. Recording. For deployment, regarding real-time crime scene awareness and tactical assessments prior to the arrival of ground units, recording each incident shall begin at or near the scene of the incident and continue to record until the UAS leaves the location or the investigative or enforcement activity has ended. So again, when a UAS is deployed or a drone is deployed, it will only start recording once it arrives on scene, and then it'll stop recording once it leaves the scene. Unless necessary for safe operations while in transit, UAS camera systems must be directed toward the horizon, so it'll be straight ahead, and may only be activated for recording at or near the incident scene. Again, I want you to know safeguarding the privacy of the community is paramount. It's what the department holds dearly. So, next slide, please. And with our program, it's all about transparency and public notification. So, as the DFR program grows, and as each station has their DFR program, what has to happen is a community outreach plan has to be developed. The station has to reach out to the community, explain the processes and what the program is about, it also it talks about the metrics on it as far as evaluating the flight time, response time reduction, evidentiary value, community satisfaction, and complaint trends shall be collected. These metrics shall be reported quarterly and evaluated for the program effectiveness at the station or unit level. The UAS operations unit shall maintain a UAS dashboard on department's transparency page. I spoke about that briefly, which will be updated regularly, but not less than monthly. The dashboard shall include information, including the number of flights, locations, and types of calls on all U.S. deployments, except for those related to ongoing investigations. In addition, the department will provide the Civilian Oversight Commission with an annual report summarizing U.S. usage, the results and effectiveness of any deployments to mitigate the risks of harm to officers or suspects, and that will again be reported to the COC. Next slide.
Well, thank you, Captain Royster and Lieutenant Joseph Salazar. All right, this section here, we're going into the live questions with attendees. I want to thank you all. Thank you all to our presenters. Now we'd like to open the floor up for questions from the community. Your feedback is important and will help guide our future policies and reviews. We will begin with live questions from participants. If you are logged into WebEx to ask a question, please raise your hand. If you have called in, please press *3 to join the queue to be unmuted. We will unmute you when it's your turn so you can ask questions. If your question is for a specific panelist, feel free to state that. As a reminder, please limit questions and comments to 2 minutes. We also ask that questions and comments remain respectful and constructive. Any comment that is disruptive or disrespectful will be muted. And we will move on to the next question immediately.
We have one question from Caroline Goodman. Caroline Goodman, I'm going to unmute you. Please ask your question or provide your comment. Caroline, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, are you able to hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. It took me a while to find the button. It's Carolina Goodman. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Greater Los Angeles. First, let me start with an appreciation for your efforts to comply with AB 481 and provide the transparency required by law. However, my main question has to do with military equipment in general. Weapons were designed for war, and LASD is not at war with people of the Los Angeles County. We fear that emerging technologies are shiny new things that are attractive to law enforcement. You have militarized equipment and tactics that are more effective and less costly for your peacekeeping responsibilities. I'd like to make another important point. It may be appropriate when all other de-escalation tactics have been exhausted to use less lethal weapons to target individuals who are committing crimes. However, having such weapons doesn't mean you need to use them. Indiscriminate scattershot, multi-projectile weapons, pepper balls, and grenades have the potential to harm innocent bystanders during protests and in jails, and should be eliminated from your inventory. Thank you for considering this request.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other questions? While we wait for additional community questions, I will ask our panelists a few prepared questions to provide more insight.
Captain Haynes, interrupt you.
Yes.
We have 2 questions that just came in. I'm going to
Okay.
unmute Ms. Warren and Jason, followed by Jason. Ms. Wren, can you please unmute yourself?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So help me understand, am I correct in reading the report that the LASD plans to phase out the stun bag launcher? If so, I'd like to praise the LASD for doing that and wonder if you can tell me what timetable the LSD has for doing it.
Thank you for the question and the comment there. I think I'll take this one. Yes, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department does plan on phasing out the stun bag shotgun. There are other alternatives that are safer, and we feel that as technology progresses and we find items that are better suited for our needs, which include accuracy, being the #1 key, we have recognized that there are other alternatives. Currently, all stun bags have been removed from patrol operations. They're currently held in reserve in the event of any other emergencies, but they are not normally deployed in the public at this time. We also do not see any potential for us to redeploy them in future operations unless they are absolutely necessary. So thank you for observing that, and yes, we will be phasing them out immediately.
Thank you. Thank you for your reply.
Jason, you have been unmuted. Please ask your question or your comment to the panelists. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I hear you.
Okay. So thank you for taking my question today, and thank you for all the work that you all do to keep our community safer. I just had a question about the firearms portion of the report here for the Remington 308 rifles. I noticed that the acquisition cost per item is approximately $6,500, which appears to be more expensive than some of the other rifles and other firearms on the list. So I was just curious as to why that seemed to be so much more expensive than some of the other firearms on that list.
Captain Royster, if you don't mind, I think I can probably answer this one. So the Remington 308 rifles that we have are obviously a precision rifle and reserved for our Special Enforcement Bureau only. The costs that you see on our list will normally include all of the accessories that may go along with it. So as some people may see that our standard Remington 308 rifles, as compared to what might be available to the public on a generalized sale in a regular gun store, the rifles that we have are usually enhanced for accuracy, include other accessories such as the optics that may be placed on top of them, other things such as slings and bipods would also be included in that price. So when we look at our rifle, it would be the weapon system as a whole and not just the individual rifle. So with that in mind, that's when we will normally see those prices. As you can imagine, the Sheriff's Department does not get any discounts, and we would pay what many would refer to as full retail price for all of our items. I hope that answers your question.
Ms. Goodman, you have been unmuted. Please ask your question.
Hello, I see that there's more time to ask other questions, and thank you for taking my second question. It has to do on page 16. The annual report states there were no public complaints submitted regarding military equipment usage in 2025. However, Sergio Espejo, a data engineer, has filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against LASD. His lawsuit alleges excessive force after a flashbang device reportedly struck him and detonated on impact during the No Kings protest on June 14. Also, Miguel Mendoza and Daisy Bravo have filed civil rights lawsuits against the city and county of LA, alleging unconstitutional use of force by LAPD and LASD. They say they suffered traumatic brain injuries after being struck in the head and face by so-called less lethal projectiles during protests against federal immigration raids in June 2025. Can you explain this discrepancy in the complaint data? Does the complaint process work effectively to capture on-the-ground reality of less lethal weapons?
I will answer that. Okay. Thank you for bringing those to our attention. I don't know exactly when those were served, but those are certainly things that we can review and look at to see if it should be qualified as a complaint under these circumstances. So appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
Captain Haynes, we have 2 additional questions. Ms. Warren, please ask your question or provide your public comment to the panelists. You have been